She was thrown out of her home in the middle of the night, holding her newborn baby, betrayed by the man she trusted most. With nowhere to go and no one to help, she thought her life was over. But that night was only the beginning of a destiny no one could imagine. I still remember the moment my world broke apart. It didn't happen with screaming or chaos. It happened quietly, painfully, with words spoken so cold they felt sharper than knives. My husband stood in front of me, his face stiff, his eyes avoiding mine. Behind him, sitting on the couch like she belonged there, was another woman. My heart already knew the truth before my mind could accept it. I was holding my newborn son in my arms. He was barely 3 weeks old, his tiny fingers curled around my scarf, his breathing soft and warm against my chest. I had just returned from the kitchen when I saw her. She didn't even look embarrassed. She looked confident, comfortable, as if this house was hers. I asked my husband one simple question. Who is she? He stayed silent for a few seconds, then sighed like I was exhausting him. It's not what you think, he said, the oldest lie in the world. But the way he stood closer to her than to me told me everything. I felt my legs weaken. My entire body shook. I had given up everything for this man. I had left my job when I was pregnant because he promised to take care of us. I had trusted him with my life, my future, my heart. And now, standing there with another woman, he looked at me like I was a problem he wanted gone. You should leave, he said suddenly. I thought I misheard him. What? You heard me, he replied. Take the baby and go. I can't do this anymore. My hands tightened around my son. It's the middle of the night, I whispered. Where will I go? That's not my problem, he said, his voice flat. I've made my decision. I begged him. I hated myself for it, but I begged. I reminded him that this baby was his son, that I had no money, no family left to turn to. My parents had passed away years ago, and my relatives had cut ties after my marriage. But my words meant nothing to him. The next thing I knew, my small bag was thrown at my feet. The door opened, and just like that, I was outside. The door slammed shut behind me. I stood there for a long time, unable to move. The street was empty, silent, except for distant dogs barking. The cold wind cut through my clothes. My baby stirred and let out a soft cry, and that sound broke me completely. I held him closer, rocking him gently. It's okay, I whispered, even though nothing was okay. Mama is here. But inside, I was terrified. I started walking. I didn't know where I was going. My phone battery was almost dead. I had no cash, no cards, nothing. Every step felt heavier than the last. People say a mother becomes strong when she has a child. That night, I learned what that really meant. I wasn't walking for myself. I was walking for him. I sat on a bench near a closed shop, trying to block the wind with my body. My son started crying louder now. I knew what he needed. He was hungry. But stress had dried up my milk, and I had no formula, no bottle. Tears rolled down my face as I tried to calm him. People passed by, some glanced at me, others looked away. A few women whispered to each other, their eyes full of judgment. I could almost hear their thoughts. Another abandoned woman. Probably her own fault. No one asked if I needed help. Hours passed like years. My arms ached, my back hurt, my eyes burned from crying. At one point, I felt dizzy from hunger. I hadn't eaten since morning. Still, I kept rocking my baby, singing him the same lullaby my mother used to sing to me. Just before dawn, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier. My clothes got wet. The blanket around my baby grew damp, and panic filled my chest. I stood up again, searching for shelter, any shelter. I found a small bus stop with a broken roof. It wasn't much, but it was something. I sat there, shivering, counting every breath my baby took. I prayed silently, not for myself, but for him. "Please," I whispered, "don't let my child suffer because of my fate." That was my lowest point. I didn't know that somewhere, life was quietly preparing to answer my prayer. I didn't know that a stranger would soon walk into my broken world, not with grand words, not with fake promises, but with something I had lost completely: human kindness. And that was the beginning of everything changing, that I didn't realize how weak I was until my body finally gave up on pretending to be strong. As the rain slowed and the sky began to turn a dull gray, my legs felt numb, my fingers stiff from cold. My baby had finally fallen asleep again, his tiny face calm, as if trusting me completely to protect him. That trust terrified me more than the night itself. I stood up and started walking again, aimlessly, following the road wherever it led. Shops were beginning to open. Metal shutters rattled upward. The smell of tea and fresh bread filled the air, making my empty stomach twist painfully. I lowered my eyes, ashamed of how desperate I felt. I had never imagined I would be this woman, walking the streets at dawn, holding a baby, with nowhere to go. I tried calling my husband one last time. The phone rang once, twice, then stopped. He had blocked my number. That final rejection felt heavier than the door he slammed in my face. I realized then that I was truly alone. As I walked past a small grocery store, my baby began crying again. This time it was louder, more urgent. Hunger. I stepped aside, sat on the curb, and tried everything to soothe him. I rocked him, whispered to him, kissed his forehead. Nothing worked. His cries grew sharper, cutting through my chest.
People passed by.
Some stared. Some shook their heads. One woman muttered, "Such a young baby," before walking away. No one stopped. I was crying openly now, tears mixing with the rain on my face. I felt like I had failed my child before his life had even begun. That's when I heard a calm voice nearby. "Are you okay?" I looked up quickly, my heart racing. Standing a few steps away was a man, maybe in his early 30s. He wasn't dressed expensively, just simple clothes, clean and neat. His face held no judgment, no curiosity, only concern. He kept a respectful distance, his hands visible, as if he didn't want to scare me. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. He looked at my baby, then back at me. "He sounds hungry." That one sentence broke something inside me. I shook my head, unable to speak for a moment. I don't have anything," I finally whispered. He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than I had said. "There's a small cafe across the street," he said gently. "It's warm. You can sit there. I'll buy you some milk for the baby if you allow me." Every warning in my mind screamed, not to trust strangers. But my baby cried again, his tiny body trembling. I looked at this man's eyes. They were steady, patient, not demanding anything. I nodded. He didn't touch me or the baby. He simply walked beside me as we crossed the street. Inside the cafe, the warmth wrapped around us instantly. I sat down, my hands shaking, while he spoke quietly to the owner. A few minutes later, he returned with warm milk and some bread. "Take your time," he said, placing everything on the table and stepping back. I fed my baby slowly, watching his face relax as he drank. The sound of his swallowing felt like the most beautiful music I had ever heard. Tears fell again, but this time they weren't just from pain. They were from relief. The man sat at a nearby table, not staring, not interrupting. After a while, I looked up. "Thank you," I said softly. "I'll repay you somehow." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Something about the way he said it felt honest, not polite. When my baby finished and fell asleep, the man asked, "Do you have somewhere to go?" I hesitated, then answered truthfully,
No.
He was quiet for a moment. "My sister runs a small women's shelter nearby," he said. "It's safe, temporary but warm. I can take you there if you want." I studied his face again. There was no pressure. He wasn't rushing me. Finally, I nodded. The shelter wasn't fancy, but it was clean.
Warm.
There was a bed, a blanket. When I laid my baby down and sat beside him, exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. I must have fallen asleep instantly. The next few days passed in a blur. The shelter staff helped me apply for basic assistance. Other women shared their stories of betrayal, loss, survival. I realized my pain wasn't unique, but that didn't make it lighter. Still, for the first time since that night, I felt safe. The man who helped me visited, once more to check on me. He brought diapers, baby clothes. He spoke kindly, but never crossed boundaries. He didn't ask personal questions. He didn't expect gratitude. Before leaving, he said, "My name is Adam. If you ever need help finding work, I know some people." I didn't know why, but his name stayed with me. Weeks passed. I found a small job sewing at a local shop. It didn't pay much, but it was honest work. Every evening, I returned my baby, holding him like he was my anchor to this world. Slowly, my strength returned. Adam kept his word. He helped me find better work. Sometimes he dropped by with groceries. Sometimes he just asked how my day was. Never once did he make me feel small or broken. One evening, as I watched him play gently with my son, making him laugh with silly faces, I felt something unfamiliar. Respect.
Safety.
Not love. Not yet. Just the quiet realization that not all men destroy. I didn't know then that life was quietly weaving our paths together for a reason. I didn't know that the man who abandoned me would one day watch from a distance as I rose higher than he ever imagined, and that the stranger who helped me with no promises would soon become the greatest blessing my broken heart never dared to ask for. Life didn't change overnight, but it began to move again, slowly, like a wounded body learning how to walk. Each morning, I woke before sunrise, fed my baby, wrapped him securely, and walked to the tailoring shop where I worked. The owner was a strict woman, but fair. She didn't ask questions about my past. She only cared about clean stitches and steady hands. For that, I was grateful. My son grew stronger every day. His cries became louder, his eyes more curious. When he smiled for the first time, I broke down in tears right there in the shelter room. That small smile felt like forgiveness, from life, from God, from fate itself. Adam remained a quiet presence. He never showed up unannounced. He always asked before helping. Sometimes he brought fruits. Sometimes he brought nothing but conversation. He listened more than he spoke. And when he spoke, his words were gentle, thoughtful, never judgmental. One evening, after a long shift, I found him sitting outside the shelter, reading a book. He stood up immediately when he saw me, as if he didn't want to seem intrusive. "I was nearby," he said. "I thought I'd check in." I nodded and sat down on the bench beside him. My baby slept peacefully in my arms. For a few moments, we just sat in silence. "You're doing well," he said finally. "I can see it." I smiled faintly. "I'm just surviving." "Sometimes surviving is the hardest part," he replied. That night, for the first time, I told someone the full truth. I told him about my marriage, about the betrayal, about being thrown out like I was nothing. I expected pity or anger on my behalf, but Adam only listened. His jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. When I finished, he spoke softly. "What he did says everything about him. Nothing about you. Those words stayed with me for days. As weeks turned into months, my life slowly rebuilt itself. I saved enough to rent a tiny room. It was small, with peeling paint and a leaky tap, but it was mine. When I moved in, Adam helped carry my bags. He didn't stay long. He just made sure the heater worked and the door locked properly. Before leaving, he looked at me seriously. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "Even if you don't need help, I'm here." That was the moment I realized something dangerous was happening inside my heart. Not love, but trust. And trust, after betrayal, is terrifying. I pulled away slightly after that. I became more careful. I didn't want to depend on anyone again. Adam seemed to sense it. He gave me space, never offended, never cold. Just respectful. One day, while walking home, I saw my past standing right in front of me. My husband. He looked thinner, older. His clothes were wrinkled. For a moment, our eyes met. His face froze in shock. Then he walked toward me, quickly. "I've been looking for you," he said. My body went rigid. My heart pounded, but I held my baby tighter and forced myself to stand firm. "Why?" "I made a mistake," he said immediately. "That woman left. She took money. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone." I laughed bitterly. "You realized when she left. Not when you threw your wife and newborn into the street." People were watching now. He lowered his voice. "Come back. We can fix this." I looked at him carefully. The man I once loved now felt like a stranger. A weak one. "No," I said calmly. His eyes widened. "Where will you go? How are you even surviving?" "I work," I answered. "I raise my child. I survive." He scoffed. "On your own? Don't be proud. You need me." That's when Adam appeared, standing just a few steps behind me. I hadn't seen him approach. His presence was quiet but firm. "She doesn't need you," Adam said evenly. And she said no. My husband looked at him, confused, then angry. "Who are you?" "Someone who respects her choices," Adam replied. There was a long, tense silence. Then my husband turned away, muttering insults under his breath. As he walked off, I felt something lift from my chest. Not closure, but freedom. I turned to Adam, my hands shaking. "Thank you. You are strong enough without me," he said. I just stood there. That night, after putting my baby to sleep, I sat alone and cried, not from pain but from release. I realized that I no longer felt broken.
Scarred, yes.
But whole. Months passed. My work improved. I was promoted. I started training other girls. Adam became a steady part of our lives. He celebrated my son's first steps. He listened to my fears without trying to fix them. Slowly, carefully, my heart opened. One evening, as we watched my son play on the floor, Adam spoke quietly. "I don't want to replace anyone," he said, "but I care about you both. Deeply." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. "I know. We didn't rush anything. Love grew gently, honestly, like something earned." I didn't know yet that fate was still working behind the scenes. That the man who betrayed me would soon see what he lost, not through my words, but through my rise. And when that day came, regret would be his only companion. The first time my son called Adam Papa, neither of us reacted right away. It slipped out naturally, innocent and pure, as if that word had always belonged to him. Adam froze, his eyes filling with something he quickly looked away from. My heart skipped, then softened. I didn't correct my son. I didn't need to. In that moment, I knew our lives were already intertwined in ways that didn't need labels. Our small home began to feel warmer, fuller. Not because of money or luxury, but because of peace. Adam never tried to control my choices. He never raised his voice. When disagreements came, he listened. And that alone healed parts of me I didn't even know were broken. One afternoon, my tailoring shop received a big order, uniforms for a corporate office. It was the biggest opportunity one had ever been given. I worked day and night, fingers sore, eyes burning, but my heart hopeful. When the order was delivered on time, the owner hugged me in front of everyone. "You saved this contract," she said. "From next month, you'll be supervising." That night, I cried again, but this time from pride. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building something. Adam celebrated quietly. He cooked dinner, bought a small cake, and lit one candle. "For your strength," he said. Life, however, has a way of testing happiness. A few weeks later, my past came knocking again, this time in the form of gossip. Women from my old neighborhood began whispering. Some said I had left my husband for another man. Others said I was living off Adam. The words hurt more than I expected. Even after everything, society was quick to judge. One evening, I came home silent, heavy with shame. Adam noticed immediately.
"Talk to me," he said.
I hesitated, then told him everything. He listened, then said something that changed the way I saw myself. "People talk when they don't understand strength," he said. "You don't owe anyone an explanation." Still, the pressure grew. One day, a woman from my husband's family showed up unannounced. She looked around my modest home with narrowed eyes. "So this is how you live now," she said coldly. "You destroyed a marriage and now pretend to be happy." I stood there, shaking, but Adam stepped forward calmly. "Please leave," he said. "You're not welcome here."
She scoffed.
"You think this woman is loyal? She'll leave you too." Adam didn't react. He only said, "She's already proven her loyalty to her child, to herself." After she left, I collapsed into tears. Adam held me, not tightly, but securely. "You are safe," he whispered. Not long after, fate delivered its twist. The company that placed the uniform order invited me to an appreciation event. I almost didn't go. I didn't own anything fancy. But Adam encouraged me. "Go," he said. "You earned this." That evening, dressed simply, I walked into a hall filled with well-dressed people. My hands trembled until I heard my name announced. As I stepped forward, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. My husband. He was sitting near the back, eyes wide, disbelief written across his face. I learned later he worked there as a junior clerk, barely holding on to the job. I stood on stage, being praised for my work ethic, my leadership, my dedication as a single mother. Applause filled the room. I didn't look at him again, but I didn't need to. I could feel his regret like a shadow behind me. After the event, Adam was waiting outside. He handed me a flower, simple and white. "I'm proud of you," he said. That night, I made a decision I had been afraid to face. "I want my son to grow up seeing respect," I told Adam. "If you're still willing, I want us to be a family." Adam didn't rush to answer. He looked at my son, then at me. "I've been ready," he said softly. "I was just waiting for you. We didn't announce anything. We didn't need approval. We lived our truth quietly." What I didn't know was that my husband's regret was only beginning. Life was about to teach him a lesson far harsher than loneliness. And I would face it, not with anger, but with dignity. Time has a strange way of revealing the truth. It doesn't rush. It doesn't explain itself. It simply places people exactly where they deserve to be. After that night at the event, my life continued to rise quietly. Adam and I didn't rush into anything dramatic. We focused on stability, on routine, on giving my son a childhood filled with warmth instead of fear. Adam became more than a presence. He became a pillar. He attended doctor visits, parent meetings, and bedtime story nights. He never tried to replace the past. He simply became the present. My work flourished. I was offered a permanent supervisory role, and with it came better pay and respect. I moved from the small room into a modest apartment. Nothing luxurious, but clean, bright, and safe. Every corner held peace. When I placed my son's toys on the shelf and watched him run freely from room to room, I knew I had won a battle I once thought impossible. One evening, Adam and I sat on the balcony watching the city lights. My son slept between us, his head resting on Adam's arm. The moment felt unreal. "Do you ever regret anything?" Adam asked gently. I thought for a moment. "I regret believing love meant endurance of pain," I said. "But I don't regret where I am now." Adam smiled softly. "Neither do I." Not long after, the past returned one final time. But this time, it came powerless. I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was my husband. His voice sounded tired.
Broken.
"I heard you're doing well," he said. I stayed silent. "I lost my job," he continued. "I'm struggling.
I
need help." I felt no anger, no satisfaction, just distance. "Why are you calling me?" "Because you're the only one who ever stood by me," he said quietly. I looked at my son playing on the floor, laughing. Adam watched me from across the room, calm and steady. "You threw me out with your child," I said evenly. "In the middle of the night. You didn't protect us then. Why should I now?" "I was stupid," he whispered. "I thought you'd always be there." "That's the problem," I replied. "You thought. You didn't care." He began to cry. The sound felt foreign. Once, it would have shattered me. Now, it didn't move me at all. "I forgive you," I said finally. "But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to pain." I ended the call. When I put the phone down, my hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt free. A few weeks later, Adam asked me a simple question while we were cooking dinner. "Will you marry me?" There was no audience. No drama. Just honesty. I looked at him, at the man who never raised his voice, never made promises he couldn't keep, never made me feel small. "Yes," I said. We married quietly. No grand ceremony. Just a small gathering of people who had seen our journey and respected it. When my son held Adam's hand and smiled up at him, calling him Papa without hesitation, I knew fate had rewritten my story. My husband didn't attend. He wasn't invited. Not out of revenge, but because he no longer belonged in my chapter. Years later, people would tell my story differently. Some would say, I was lucky. Others would say I was strong. The truth was simpler. I lost everything, and that loss saved me. Because sometimes, the door that closes on your face is the one protecting you from a life that would have destroyed you. And sometimes, the stranger who shows up quietly is the answer to a prayer you were too broken to speak. I once stood in the cold night, holding my newborn, believing my life was over. I was wrong. It was just beginning. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Sometimes the people who break us are only making space for the ones who will protect us. Life may take everything away in one cruel moment, but it can return something far greater when we least expect it. For every mother who has been judged, every woman who has been betrayed, and every soul who thought their story was over, this is your reminder that strength grows in silence, love arrives without force, and destiny often begins after loss. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest mornings.